Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today, we're going to have such a fun discussion. We've done over 800 programs, and this topic has never been discussed. So hang on to your seats, folks. We're going to have so much fun with this. So please join me in welcoming Judy Wilkins-Smith to our program today. Welcome, Judy. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Deb. It's lovely to be with you. I'm great. How are you?
I am fantabulous, fantabulous. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this.
Sure.
Judy Wilkins-Smith is a highly regarded organizational, individual, and family patterns expert, a systemic executive coach, trainer, facilitator, thought partner, and leadership conference and motivational speaker. She has 18 years of experience in assisting high-performance individuals, Fortune 500 executives, and legacy families to end limiting cycles and reframe challenges into lasting breakthroughs and peak performance. Passionate about visionary leadership and positive, accelerated global change, Judy uses her ability to understand critical dynamics in personal and organizational systems and the points at which they intersect to create growth and success. As the founder of System Dynamics for individuals and organizations, she collaborates with individuals and corporate decision makers to implement innovative, whole system design elements, ensuring balance, appetite for excellence, passion, and sustained success. Judy is also the author of, this is a long title, folks, hang on, Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint, a powerful guide to transformation through disentangling multi-generational patterns. So again, Judy, welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be with you.
Great. Well, I always love asking my guests how they got to where they are today. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Wow. So I'm originally from South Africa, born and raised, and we moved over here in 1996. My background was a medical background, but of course, moving over here and waiting for the green card meant I couldn't use it. My father was actually killed here, and it was a question of, do I write books or go crazy? And I figured that writing books was probably the better option. So doing some of the research, I stumbled into this work and somebody who was doing it. And I said to them, can you help? And they said, come study my work and I'll help you with a book. Went and studied the book, got zero help with the book, just saying. But what it did was it started me on a journey of understanding patterns in systems. So family systems, organizational systems, and understanding that those are what really run the show quite unconsciously, and that if we're not conscious of them, it dictates how rich or how poor, how successful or not, how happy or not we will be. So these patterns echo all the way through generations, all the way down to you. And then they sit there waiting for you to be the one to do something. So that's how I got started. And then I guess about 3 or 4 years in, someone said to me, well, of course you can do this. And I went, why? And they said, well, it started in South Africa, which I didn't know. And it was a gentleman by the name of Bert Hellinger who went to South Africa. And as he puts it, he went to go and tame the Zulu tribe. Only they tamed him. And he noticed that they didn't have neuroses. And as he observed, he noticed that they would go back into the family system to see what was going on. So Zulu tribe, South Africa, and all of a sudden I laughed when they said that, because when I left South Africa and the medical arena, the person who gave my farewell speech was a Zulu chief. He was a surgeon, but also a Zulu chief. And he said to me, you may be leaving us, but you'll find a way to represent us in the world. And I went, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank
Now
you, thank
I
you.
do it every day. So that's how I got here. Then, of course, it kind of morphed from working with individuals to organizations going, hold on, this particular approach that you use, especially the dimensionalization of an issue, is really helpful. It means we could see, hear, touch, feel. So we're incorporating different senses. Can you come work with us? And so that then became organizational executive coaching, systemic executive coaching. And so now I work a lot with Fortune 500 and Fortune 50 companies and the C-suite.
Right. I love it. Well, you know, your book was fascinating, and I love that you give all these examples, and you know, it was great. So I highly recommend that people get it. It's important for so many reasons, because as you said, we are kind of who came before us. That's that. And we see commercials 20 times a day for ancestry.com.
Bingo.
And and I'm on there. It's great fun. You find out all sorts of interesting things, good and bad, all sorts of cool stuff. But you talk about emotional DNA. So explain that a little bit more.
So ancestry.com or Ancestry and all of those.
All of
all of those that's Ancestry 1.0. What I do is Ancestry 2.0. In other words, where you belong. But we don't always look at the events and how they've affected us.
Right.
Because an event creates a reaction. The reaction creates thoughts, feelings, and actions. It creates a very specific language. And it's powerful because what the brain tells the body that the body can believe becomes the new truth. And then we start to talk that as though it was the truth, but it's actually just your truth. And we'll pass that down to our kids. We go, oh, don't do that. It's dangerous. Be careful. Watch out. Don't. So we're primed with all of these, be careful, watch out, don't do it. Shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And that includes things like regrets. It includes things like leadership, money, relationships. All of that comes down to us. So we think we have free will, and no, we don't. And we have even less free will if we don't know what lives in our systems. Because whatever is excluded in a system or whatever is incomplete creates a pattern that expands and repeats. So, for example, great-grandmother loses great-grandfather when he goes off to war. And she says to the girls, go to work hard. You can't trust a man, or you can't rely on a man, actually. You can't rely on a man.
They're going to leave you.
Yeah, well, this is it. They're going to leave you one way or another. So what happens is she says you can't rely on a man. Well, no, the poor guy didn't make it back.
He wanted to come home.
That's it. Bit of a fatal flaw there. But what then gets translated is the daughter hears, don't trust a man. They're going to leave you, like you said. So that becomes the dominant sentence and the dominant emotions and the dominant actions. That passes down to mom, and mom's saying the same thing, and she gets divorced, grandma gets divorced. Now you meet the love of your life and you go, oh, don't trust the man. We got to kill this one off very fast.
Right, because we don't want to get hurt.
Exactly. We don't want to repeat what happened back there. The only thing is, guess what? The worst has already happened. We're just repeating aspects of it. So 90% of the time, we're actually living or reliving ancient history. We are not living our own true lives until we stop and look at the pattern that's there, kind of debrief it, take what we need, leave what should stop, and then write the chapter that only we can write, the new chapter. Hey, I look at a man, and now a man can stay. Great-grandfather, I see you over there, and I know you couldn't help it. This happened. Since then, all of the men have gone missing in the family. Bless me or look at me when I can look at a man and welcome them and know men are delicious. And guess what? they can stay. And so you start to spin a different pattern. That's emotional DNA, the pattern of thoughts, feelings, actions, inactions, and events. And it's really important because epigenetically, it also impacts. There are great studies done about that. The Great Dutch Hunger Winter is one. 9/11 is another one. We know that if there's a significant event, it creates an impact on the system that becomes a blueprint for generations of subsequent behavior. So with 9/11, they studied women who'd been pregnant with children at that stage, and the mothers had elevated PTSD markers. So did the children.
Right.
So that had been triggered, and the children were triggered too. And that trigger also travels. So it becomes a biological piece as well. But the beautiful thing about it is you can have 100 years worth of ouch when you look at it and you choose to do it differently. You start to rewire the brain. So now we're into neuroscience. You're rewiring the brain, one thought, one feeling, one action at a time. And now you're no longer reliving ancient history. You're perfectly in the present, and the predictable future is no longer the predictable future.
Right.
You have a whole new game.
I love it. And I love how you say, you take something from all of that.
Absolutely.
So, say, grandma, mom, all those folks had said, men can't be trusted. They're gonna leave you. So the good might be, you need to be independent.
Bingo.
You
exactly
need to stand,
right.
And you earn your own keep. All of those things that are not bad things, right? But
They're
then,
not.
as you said, then we take the next part of it and we say, and I'm going to find a man who appreciates that.
Bingo.
And and so then, of course, then you are teaching your children all of those things. And it was funny because as I was reading it, I was thinking, we've talked about this for years, and a lot of times, and I don't know if it's different or not, we kind of talk about learned behavior. And I was especially thinking about, say, abusive people.
Right.
Who have an abusive parent. Frequently, you learned as a woman that you're going to marry an abuser, and you learned as a man that it was okay to do that.
Right.
And so that was, but obviously, you can break those trends.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so that was kind of how I was thinking of it. It was almost this, we learned that was the way things are supposed to be.
Exactly. So you learned the systemic sentences or systemic language. This is how it is in the system.
Right.
And what I say to people is, and what if it isn't? What if it isn't? What if we do it just a tweak differently? What's possible when we do it just a little tweak differently? And this is where the whole human potential lies. Because when we start challenging and asking, what's possible here? Suddenly everything starts to open up. We move from this old systemic brain to the frontal cortex, and we start to imagine. And in the imagining, we create something very different and very new. And this is how evolution happens. What people are most frequently caught in is a systemic trance. So we know we shouldn't be doing it. We know it's not good for us, and we can feel ourselves sliding into it.
And we do it anyway.
Oh, familiar. Yeah, that's a systemic trance. And then people say, well, that's fine, but so no, what do I do? Well, what you do is you find a purpose or a goal or a deep, deep desire, because anchored in the multi-generational pattern is the frustration, the irritation, the wish it could be different. That's the pattern that's trying to stop. But anchored in the purpose, the wish, and the desire, and the deep desire is the future and the you and the now and what comes after. And so if you are excited about what you want to do, and you're really powerfully excited with elevated emotions, it'll pull you past the systemic trance. You know that thing where Auntie Alice says, my dear, you cannot spend that money to go to the Caribbean. You can look at that and go, I'm going to the Caribbean. I'm booking it. Nobody in 3 generations has left the US to go and see what's out there. It's time. I'm going to be the adventurer. I'm so excited. Yes, but, and you go, no, this is a strong pull for me. I need to do that.
Right.
Only to find, when you look back at history, by the way, that often somebody else had done that. And that was what caused the change.
Yeah, how did they get there to start with?
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it starts when we're babies, right? When we're
Very
told
much.
you can't do this, you can do that.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it seems like far more often we're told that you can't. As girls now, our generation, thankfully started figuring this out and was telling the generations behind us that it needed to be different. But my generation was told girls can't do math, girls can't do science, girls can't do, and so then, and then it was you can't do. And,
right.
And I remember looking at him and going, partially because my mother looked at him and went, but, we had counselors. I mean, I remember applying for college and my counselor, now I went to a very small school. So we had one counselor for the whole school. And, I was not a dumb child. I actually had early admittance to some of those Ivy places.
Right.
And fortunately was smart enough to not go do that because I would not have coped well with that. But, but my counselor, I would, at that point when I was, I wanted to be a lawyer because I like to talk and argue, right? Seems like a good thing for lawyers to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I distinctly remember her saying, "Oh no, girls don't do that." And, and I looked at her and thought, well, aren't you useless? And I started getting a degree in political science, figured that really wasn't what I wanted to do. But it's the people, and so then when you have those outward forces saying you can or can't do, and obviously when you get the people who say you can do this, that's the greatest thing in the world. But for the negatives, I mean, when you've got that outward and then you've got that inward, girls don't do this,
right.
or boys don't, boys have to be strong, tough, masculine type of things like that. It's just kind of this two-edged sword.
It really is. And I think what you're also touching on is we actually have two parts of a language.
Mm-hmm.
We're born with two parts of a language. And you see that in the book.
Mm-hmm.
We mostly are brought up via all the major religions and ways of thinking to suffer greatly,
mm-hmm.
know that we're sinners,
mm-hmm.
die nicely, and hope
mm-hmm.
you get to L34 on
mm-hmm.
the left-hand side when you get the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But there is another language that says, yes, you can. Of course you can. You're quite capable. Look at what you can do. And it's when you start investing in that
mm-hmm.
and you start believing in self beyond
mm-hmm.
generational trance,
right,
that life becomes a very big adventure. And you go, wait a minute, there are not quite the limitations that I've been told.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really exist. They exist here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used this to tell my body it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start to invest the other way, oh my goodness, things change and they change rapidly.
Right.
And you discover that there is an amazing world
mm-hmm.
out there waiting for girls, for women,
mm-hmm.
by the way, and they're going to slay me for this, but waiting for all of us to get past the systemic trance of
mm-hmm.
the guys are keeping us down and just figure it out.
Just go and go
That's
do it.
Exactly
mm-hmm.
it. Yeah. Nobody's keeping you down. This is.
Yeah. And when we play the blame game for whatever it is, maybe we're blaming our parents, maybe teachers, society, whatever, then we don't have to take responsibility.
It also stops us from having the adventure.
Right.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
When people really get this and they go, oh my goodness, the reasons that I had for not moving,
mm-hmm.
and I look at where I am now, that was an okay life, but
mm-hmm.
this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the thing for me always is to say to people who go, well, I can't, there are all of these great reasons. Mm-hmm. If you move now one step at a time,
mm-hmm.
in about a year's time, you're going to look back at that place that you were at and go, really?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and in so many cases, it's kind of well, why shouldn't you do it? I mean, if it's not going to cause bodily harm to you
right.
or somebody else, then why not do it? And now granted, okay, don't go spend your fortune, spend everything, you
Yeah,
still
please
have
don't
to
do
be
that.
cautious. But it's okay, so you want to start a business, this is a business program. And everybody oh no, that's not.
That's risky. Do you
Yeah,
understand
you
how silly that is?
oh
No,
yeah,
we invest
yeah,
safely.
yeah, and so the key is you start small. I think that's been one of the things that we saw a lot of during COVID was what they call the gig economy. Took me a long time to figure that out, and then I went, oh, side gig. Okay, now I get it. Where people thought, okay, this is a hobby. Maybe I should make money at it. Or hey, I've done this. I've done this. That's a
I
fun
love
word.
doing.
Um,
Doing is good.
I've done this for years, but I've always wanted to do this. And so, by going in slowly, you might go, okay, I'm going to keep job A until I know that career B is going to take off. Now, there's
Exactly.
the key to that. I mean, long ago, I started my business 20 years ago. I met with a wonderful business consultant, and I was doing that exact thing. I was working at one place, doing the other. And she told me, she said, you jumped off that diving board and then you reached around and you grabbed it.
Yep.
And she said, until you let go, you're not going to make your business work. And she said, hang on until you're ready, but then you've got to let go. And of course, letting go was going in and telling people that I really respected and admired and liked that I was quitting. But yeah, I mean, so it's, we're not saying max out every credit card, sell your house, do whatever, but why not? What's going to be
That's
the
it.
worst
And
thing?
what you're saying is stretch, don't snap or
Mm-hmm.
don't crack.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
yes, you should be stretching. I think it's Stephen Kotler who has some of the best books. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that he talks about is you should always be 4 degrees outside of your comfort
Mm-hmm.
zone.
Right.
And people say to me, so what does that mean? And I say,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
I love the water,
Mm-hmm.
love being in the water for as long as I can. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the sea, just don't even talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes me about 40 minutes to get in because
Mm.
I'm inch by inch, cinch by
There's
cinch.
sharks out there.
Well, it's more like it's cold, it's cold, it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and I thought, you know what? That silly little thing is going to be my 4 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next time I went to the sea, I looked at the sea and the sea looked at me and I went, here we go. And I walked straight in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've
And you
done that
shivered
ever
for a little
since.
bit and then went,
Shivered for maybe 10 seconds and it was over.
mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and went, okay, so if I could do that, where are my other 4 degrees? And it's so interesting. It's looking at your habits and going, really? Do I need to get tweaked by that or triggered by that?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it time to put that down because all it's doing is raising my blood pressure? So am I in service of my best self?
Mm-hmm.
Really not.
Mm-hmm.
Or where could I push myself a little?
Mm-hmm.
And mine was to start doing events at Disney World because I went and said to him, Disney's one of my favorite places. No, it's my favorite place in the world. And I really wanted to also teach there as well as go play there.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I asked them, so what will it take? And they quoted the prices. I tell you what, I started sweating like crazy. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And my inside's going, are you a crazy person?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you did? Do you know how much they cost? What happens if they don't arrive? If those people don't show up, do you know what you're on the hook for? I mean, all of those systemic sentences.
Oh, yes, those little voices going.
Exactly. Now, those little voices I've discovered are your multi-generational voices.
Yeah, if you listen closely, there's grandma, there's grandpa. They're all in there going.
Exactly right. Yes. And I had to go, and we're doing it. And I will now, in 2023, I think it'll be my 8th time. And so I discovered that, yes, I love Disney. Give me any reason to be there and I will. And I can teach there. And in addition to that, I take companies through there and we do themed pieces, leadership building. So it really was a case of getting beyond very strong, because let's be clear, they are very strong.
Oh, yes.
Multi-generational voices going, and actually saying, you know what? I really do believe that saying, and I don't know where it comes from. When you die, you don't regret the things you did. It's the things you didn't
Right.
do.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that stretch is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
We all want things and then we
Mm-hmm.
subscribe to the let's try doing it the same way. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we see that so many times with businesses who are doing the exact same thing as their competitors.
Yes.
And because that's safe, that you can sell coffee that is exactly like the big guy down the street with the green
Right.
awnings. You're just going to call it something different. Well, sure, you can, but what if you sold something a little different?
Exactly. Exactly. Even that's a really important point because, as I said, I work with a lot of those companies. And often I will say to them, okay, so you're all doing this,
Mm-hmm.
but all in a downturn.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you become a contrarian and do that?
Right.
It's going to be the disruptor that's going to be the leader.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be the same old sheep.
Right.
It will be the disruptor. And interestingly enough, and I'm sure you've bumped into this, but interestingly enough, it's investing in your human potential that improves the bottom line, not cutting to the bone.
Right.
And yet often companies are cutting to the bone. There are other very important and innovative solutions that mean you don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can invest in your people and your people are going to bring you all the way up.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think we saw that a lot during COVID. Yes, it was horrible. It was awful. Still is. Blah. But when we saw those companies who went, okay, we've always done this and now we can't. We can close our doors.
Right.
Which a lot of them did. Or what if we did this? One of my favorites, and I don't remember which one it was, but one of the whiskey distilleries that all of a sudden could not, they were not supposed to be producing whiskey. I'm not quite sure. I would have thought we needed whiskey more than ever, but whatever.
I agree.
And instead they made hand sanitizer. And they actually put it in the same type of bottles, things like that.
I heard about that. I don't know who it was, but how smart is that?
Right. So their employees were still working, which of course was one of the major things. They were producing a product that everybody wanted, right? I told people, I said, I had used so much hand sanitizer. I piddled hand sanitizer.
Me too. And I've never used it in my life until then.
I know, right? And so, and so they had a product that people needed, that they needed desperately. They kept their machines going. They kept all that going. Of course, when things calmed down, they transitioned back to whiskey. But they saw that opportunity and they jumped at it. But most other people went, yep, sorry, got to close our doors.
Yeah. And how crazy is that? You saw that with individuals as well. And here was the piece that I've been talking about a lot. Many individuals made the switch, but they forgot to acknowledge that they've done it. And if you don't acknowledge that you've switched, you're not encoding that emotional DNA. You're going, well, I flexed for a little bit and it was fine, and now I'm back here. Don't do that, people. When you flex and you have one new thought, one new feeling, one new action, celebrate it. Celebrate it.
Right.
You're growing your life. You're growing your emotional DNA. People don't realize after the pandemic that they gained so many skill sets that they hadn't had before.
Right.
They didn't realize it. And you've got to recognize what you do right. So one of the things that I also teach is, how good are you at receiving compliments? Most people will say, eh? And
especially
I go, okay,
women.
Especially women. But here's the problem with that. If you're plotting a graph and you're only plotting the negative, how accurate is your graph?
Right.
You have no idea where you've been. You have no idea where you're going. And how are you ever going to know? When people say to you, good job, or that was kind, pay attention.
Yes.
They're teaching you what your strengths are. And we're not taught that. So it's a little hidden.
Right. I mentioned women because what we typically do, and I mean, this, I firmly believe this is encoded into us. You tell a little boy, you did good. And they go, well, of course. And that goes from, if you're 5 years old to 95, right? And they just, well, of course. If you say, Judy, good job, you deflect it.
Yep.
You say, oh, it was my team, or it wasn't that much, or all of those various things. as opposed to, as you said, just saying, thank you. I worked hard to do this. It really was a team effort, but I was the leader of that team.
And tell me more. Thank you. Tell me what worked so I can learn from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we all get caught up in, all of this thinking, well, oh my gosh, aren't people going to think that we're egotistical? Oh.
And that is a meta pattern. In other words, a great big whacking, overarching, multi-generational, multi-demographic pattern. And this is what I say to women quite often. If you're stuck as a woman, consider the fact that you're playing the systemic game. What are you going to do to change that? Because unless you do, your children, all your girls are doomed to the same thing. Right. It's in your hands. I say to my clients all the time, if you quit whining, you'll start shining.
Oh, I love that.
If you keep showing up, you'll keep growing up. The other way around, you're in trouble.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Just earlier today, I was talking with my friend Jeanette Sibley, who wrote a series of books on how to brag.
Oh, I love that.
And it's so fun because what she's talking about is that we're not saying, hey, world, look at me. We're saying, look at what I have done.
And share with me.
Yeah. And it's just this different thing. And, and her concept, she works a lot with people who are in searching for jobs, so they're in the job market, because you always go in, and you virtual or in person, one of the questions you get is, tell me about yourself. Tell me things that you've done. And we kind of like,
oh, absolutely. Right. We fumble.
And instead we should say, and she's, one of her big things is in your 30-second elevator pitch, you've got to brag. Instead of saying I worked with, Fortune 500 companies, she would say, add to that, I worked with Fortune 500 companies and they earned another $20 million because of what I did.
Wow. And that's amazing. For me, that's even going, wow, I like that.
Yeah.
Now, tying into that, I love this person and what you said. On my website, the first thing that you'll see is, how big are you willing to be?
Yes, there it is, right there. I can see it.
There you go. And so people say the same thing. That's why I went to that. They say to me, isn't that a little egotistical? And I go, no. The day that you agree to be the biggest version of yourself possible is the humblest day of your life.
Right.
It's the first day that you agree to be responsible for growing the best version of your life. Now you're in service of the universe.
Right. Yeah. And, because a lot of times, we've mentioned religion a little bit in here, but, it's, and culture and all of those things. And we have been kind of taught not to do that. And I was teaching a LinkedIn class one time and funny, we were actually at a church and that was where I was teaching it. And, these women, oh no, I can't brag. And they said, God would, and I said, no. God says, let your light shine.
Bingo.
And they just kind of went, all righty then. And I said,
spot on.
Yeah. There are ways to there is the egotistical, the narcissistic. No, we don't want to do that. But we also need to respect ourselves enough to say, this is what I bring to the table. Like it or not.
Yeah. And there's even more to it than that. I have a wealthy client who said to me, I've done, you tease it out and he'd done this and this and this and this. And he said, yeah, I don't speak about it. And I said, and there's the problem. And he said to me, why? And I said, because if you look at the role models we have right now, they're not particularly gorgeous. They teach us
in a variety of industries.
Yeah, they teach us that to be successful, to be wealthy, you've got to be unscrupulous and cheat.
Right.
And you're showing me that that's not true, but you hide it. So what are people left with? The blueprint for getting anywhere is be unscrupulous and cheat.
Right.
If you were to provide an alternative and say, there are very ethical ways of getting to the top, these are the things that I've been able to do for family and friends, other people go, wow, that touches my heart. I want to do that. Now you've got a world that swings around completely, and we begin to honor what's ethical, kind, nice. So we're switching from the fight, scrap, and shout emotions to the elevated kindness, love, happiness, magic, joy.
And it's okay to make money doing that.
Yes.
Because then you can put that money back,
And what is exactly the first thing we do when our own cups are full is we want to turn around and share. That's human. There is a gentleman recently in India. He's the wealthiest gentleman in India. And he said, it is perfectly okay and possible to have a full pocket and a kind heart. Of course it is.
Right.
This is
They're
another
not
topic.
opposites.
They're not. And this is one of my favorite topics is money DNA. I teach money DNA because people think that money is a commodity. It is not. It is a relationship. Right. And it is very alive and living relationship. And the way that you show up for money and the way that you expect money to show up is the way it'll show up for you. Right. And a lot of your money DNA is from all of those little sentences back there that said, money doesn't grow on trees. Love of money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. Lust may be, love, no. And we make money an or. You can have love or money. You can have fulfillment or money. It's not. Money has always been an and. And when people understand that, and they understand that all of those sayings back there were back there, and they start having a kind relationship with money, goodness, their pockets improve drastically.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking about things that my mom says. Now, bless her heart, I live in the South, I can say that.
I love bless her heart, yes.
Yeah, I mean, and we've learned, right? There's different connotations of it, but that's a different discussion. But she is, as she puts it, a child of the Depression. And she had a scarf on, she'd fling it, she'd be scarlet, she'd be all these various things. She's a child of the Depression. Now, which meant that they had to be frugal, all sorts of things. But that was then. This is now.
And yes. And this is exactly what this work is. That was then. And everything that was then has clues for you. It's telling you what worked and what didn't. Right. It's telling you what needs to stay and what needs to go. Right. It's telling you what needs to stop and what needs to start. We literally have clues out the wazoo in our family systems, which is back to ancestry. When you go to ancestry, start researching the events. When you look at I'm frugal, it may be the Depression. It may be that her ancestors came from the pogroms, came from Ireland where there was famine, and all those sentences were survival sentences.
Right.
But survival sentences are asking you, they're saying, we've done our piece, we've taught you to be wise, but now how are you going to transform that?
Right.
Start thrival sentences. Very different. Yeah. You need these to be able to find these. Right. So they serve a purpose.
Right. Yeah. The Depression stories have, if you carry those forward in a positive way, you don't run up credit card debt.
Right.
You pay your bills, all of those various things. So that's the negative making it into the positive. And of course, what happens is frequently we go, it wouldn't be 180. I was going to say 360, but of course that puts us back to where we were. We go to the opposite side, and it's like I'm going to run up every credit card to the maximum. I'm going to do all of this, do all of that, and we see that all the time, right? We're going to do the opposite of what somebody tells us we should be doing, just to be contrary, to be whatever. And they're not in many cases trying to be mean. They those little voices and all of those, they're trying to protect us.
They're very much trying to protect us and elevate us. And if you do a 180, here's the problem. Let's take the money piece. You do a 180 and say, I'm going to run up all the credit card debt. Here's what's going to happen next. You're going to be in a very bad situation.
Right.
And you know what you're going to do?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go back to that one and go, yeah, see, you mustn't do this. And so you'll be right back where you
Then
started.
you did do a 360. Mm-hmm.
Bam. So you will do an absolute 360 and you will be straight back there. It's really smart to look at. What do I want to do? What do I want to stop? What do I want to start? When did this first start for me? What was happening in my life at the time? What is one new thought, one new feeling, one new action I can take? And by the way, where do I want to anchor it? What goal? What beautiful goal is so strong, or purpose is so strong that I'm so excited I can't get out of bed fast enough. I have to go do that thing, because it will pull you past the limitations and start investing you in the possibilities.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that you talk so much about family patterns, because, those are, of course, the
it's our primary
factor.
pattern maker.
Yeah. And in business, we see this all the time. We see that the people who are entrepreneurs because their parents were entrepreneurs, or maybe their parents were the factory workers that really, really wanted to be entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And so they were the ones that had the kids out there selling lemonade on the corner, things like that. And, and we learned from them what we're doing now.
Right. So you're either, who you are is either in reaction to or in collusion with the family system,
right,
because that's where it began. Whether you know your family or not, you will still pick those up and you'll still perpetuate them. And that's very important. If you look at, and sometimes it takes generations for that to fully emerge. Let's go back to one of my favorite people, as everybody knows, good old Walt Disney. He's not the original entrepreneur. His father was. And also the other thing that many people don't know is, and it's a thing, you don't give up, you don't give up, you don't give up. It didn't all begin with a mouse. It actually began with a rabbit, Lucky Oswald. Lucky Oswald was his first star that he drew, who was going to be it. And what happened was it was taken away from him. Now, I think it was a year or two ago, they bought Lucky Oswald back. And this year coming up, Lucky Oswald gets his own space again, which is highly systemic. It means finally he belongs again. Right. And so that piece of the system can settle. But no, it was for Walt. It definitely wasn't. It was his father and it was Lucky Oswald. And he certainly was not the one who kept the glue going. That was Roy.
Right.
So, yeah. So it's really to be aware that sometimes his father was the one who began it. Like your mother who went, when people told her to not, you're not the original entrepreneur, she is. She started it. You took it and went, here we go. So you took the good from it and went, that's how we roll here as women. This is what we're doing. And that's what you want to teach yourself. Really look at the negative, give it its place, and then ask yourself, what's possible? So that you shut down the need to default to the negative and you really start investing in the positive. It's not just nice thinking. Good thinking changes your life. It's that simple.
Yeah. I interviewed a woman, I don't even remember when, a year ago or so, absolutely wonderful woman. And she was pitched to the show as an entrepreneur. She started and she franchised indoor miniature golf.
Oh, okay. Yes. Is that sort of the one with the lights and the
Yeah. And she started this in Pennsylvania because it's cold up there, and so if you wanted to have this type of business, you had to do it indoors. So I'm thinking, okay, this is fun. I like talking to entrepreneurs, finding out, how they got that. Well, then we start, now it was part of her story and she was very open about this. But I asked her before the interview, I said, is it okay? And she said, yes. So starting at age 4, she was sexually abused by her father and went all the way until she was 18 and moved out. And her family, she was the only girl. Her mother thought, mother ignored it, as typically happens. Her brothers thought this was typical. Yeah, all of these things. But clearly a horrible, awful situation. And she wrote a book about it. Very interesting book. She does not go into detail, but what she would say is the monster came into the room. Her
Right.
golf is monster golf.
Oh my goodness.
And, you know, and she turned several of those things. And she said that was very deliberate because she was working that out of her system. You know, and it was a fascinating discussion, clearly. I mean, because it's been at least a year. She and I are Facebook friends now and things like that. But, you know, she took what, you know, for many people would have just destroyed them and learned from it and then turned it into this thing. And it was just, you know, like part of what she did to make money, she worked in strip clubs. Now, as she put it very quickly, management. So she did not, you know, and she said, like, one of the things that she learned was that in strip clubs, they're all dark, right? And only the things that somebody wants you to see are lit up.
Right.
And so it can be, you know, this horrible, awful building, but if you've only got spotlights on the pretty girls, that's all you care about. And so in her golf, it's the same thing. They only spotlight the things they want you to see, and everything else is out. You know, and yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, it was fascinating to see, but she really did acknowledge what was bad.
She acknowledged what wasn't working and what had to stop, but she did a very smart thing.
Yeah.
She did not work it out of the system at all, by the way.
Yeah.
She
it was going to be part of her no matter what. Ignoring it was not going to happen.
Right. So she worked it into the system and she gave it its place. And because she did that, she could make a different choice. Now, what she did as well was she blew up, and I love that. She blew up the whole victims piece because she chose to not be a victim, but to use what she'd been given to make magic. And this is the essence of this work is you can be a victim all day long. Right. You want to know something? People will be sorry for you and they will cuddle you and they'll fuss you, but you're not going to grow and you will never get the peace you're looking for because what happened to you is trying to get you to wake up to your adventure. She did.
Right.
She did.
Right. You know, and even if it's just things like we were told, you know, little girls don't take science classes, you know, and you end up being Marie Curie, right? Yeah. and you know, all of those various things, it's, you know, it is part of us. And when we acknowledge it and then go on, that's where we grow.
It's part of us, but what will we do with it?
Right.
That's the kingmaker. You can take anything and make it absolutely dreadful, or you can take anything and turn it into something incredible. Walt, again, go back to Walt, who goes into at least Marceline, Missouri, little one-horse town. Looks at that main street in Marceline, Missouri, and imagines what's now Main Street, USA at Disney World. Hello. So with all of that, at all times, we have the ability to either make magic or turn tragic.
Right.
Choose.
Yeah. You know, and when we try to ignore it, that's when it just kind of festers.
Actually, it grows because this is very well known in the work that I do. Anything that you don't complete or you exclude creates a pattern that expands and repeats because it's trying to get your attention because it needs to be given its place so that you can grow.
Right. You know, and in your book, you talk about people who, you know, like their father was a workaholic. So he thinks I have to be the workaholic, even though the gentleman is very successful and doesn't need that second and third job. But he was taught that is what you do. You know, and acknowledging, okay, I got this great work ethic from my dad, but I learned how to improve it. So maybe that was better education, maybe, you know, all sorts of things that he did. But yeah, you know, you, as we said, you take that negative and you turn it into the positive. You know, maybe your parents started a business, it failed, started a business, failed. Okay. You learned you got a budget, you know, all these other things as opposed, but yeah, it's in there because you are going to have that fear, you know, the what ifs. So, you know, how do you turn that what if into why not?
Exactly. I love that you said that. Why not? And with everything, anything that comes to you that's negative, anything and everything,
Mm-hmm.
without exception,
Mm-hmm.
has the potential to become the incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It's in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And people will say to me, that's impossible. I was in a terrible situation. What did you do with a
Mm-hmm.
terrible situation?
Right. Mm-hmm.
What did you do with it? Did you make magic or
Mm-hmm.
did you go
Mm-hmm.
tragic?
Right.
Because if you went tragic, you went down
Mm-hmm.
the other one. But if you made magic, it grew you, it grew
Mm-hmm.
the people around you, and look at where you are now.
Right. Yeah. And we especially see that when we hear the stories of, somebody who has really overcome something like sexual abuse, like, all of those things. And, and we're always just amazed. Wow, they did this. And of course, what you're saying is we can all do that.
Every single person. It's one of those things that I say often. Transformation is not for the chosen few.
Mm-hmm.
It's for those who choose it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important. At any time of your life, no matter how sad or icky it is,
Mm-hmm.
you want to ask yourself, what am I learning now?
Mm-hmm.
How can I use this? What's
Right.
possible here?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And there really is something that you can learn from any of it.
Everything.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of like, that when your parent says, that stove is hot and you think, I'm going to touch it anyway. Right. And you learn, ow, don't do that again, ding-a-ling. And sometimes it does take that experience,
It
somebody
does
can
if
tell
we
you it's hot,
really,
it's hot,
really
it's
need
hot.
to. Yep. Or we can look at it and go, yep, that looks painful. I don't think I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do
Yeah.
this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's turn the burner down, put the pot on it.
Yes.
I mean, do whatever. But yeah, it's we don't have to experience it to go, oh yeah.
Exactly. What we can do is go, oh, that blister looks painful. I'm not putting one on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Right. But sometimes we're not that smart. Right.
No, we would like to be.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
we can be if we can become more and more mindful.
Mm-hmm.
We really can.
Right. And I love this again from a business perspective, because we can look at, like we said, are you just mimicking, or are you excelling? Are you, all of these various things with, the other businesses? And there's nothing that's unique. I mean, long gone are the days of people spending lots and lots of money on pet rocks, right? Remember that?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and whoever came up with that really did deserve to get however much money they did, because we were just idiots. But
were we, or were they showing us something that we didn't fully explore? I don't know, but they were darn smart.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah, so nothing is unique, but it's what you do with it that makes
That's it. That's it. It really is. The person who wins is the person who looks and says, what's possible? Mm-hmm. And invests in the adventure.
Right. And we see that obviously with businesses all the time.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what it is. It's those who make it theirs that are truly successful. And they're the ones that you remember, for good or bad. I mean, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk. I mean, all of those, or you go back further, all of those people. Yeah, it's you remember what they did to make it theirs.
Yes, they made it theirs, and they also kept saying yes, and they kept going there.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept going beyond all of the limiting sentences, right. And went, forget it, I'm doing it.
Right.
So they invested in the adventure completely.
Right. Now there are times where they probably should have not gone there. I mean, Twitter, it's just going to be interesting to see what happens with Twitter. But, but a big part of that was he was going to do it his way. And we see that, with many of the big leaders of companies, whether it's Bezos saying, I'm going to sell this stuff out of my garage. Why can't I sell this stuff out of my garage? Or any of them, or just, the person that has this, cute little idea, and they open up a little store and they're happy as can be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's literally investing in the adventure and saying yes. When you look at the adventure and you ask what's possible, an ordinary career becomes something that you cannot get to quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
an ordinary idea becomes that rock star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Judy, this has been so much fun. And it has been so delightful to be talking with you, but I want to give you the opportunity to tell people more about what it is that you do and where they can find you and connect with you.
Sure. So let's go to the last one. Where can they find me? Judy Wilkins-Smith.com. What do I do? I do two things. I'm an executive coach to Fortune 500 executives. And the other thing that I do is I teach this work, systemic work and constellations. So it's how to dimensionalize an issue, how to take what you're sitting thinking about out of your head, put it in front of you, put it in 3D, start looking at the thoughts, feelings, and actions, and teach you how to rewire your brain in a very powerful way that takes you from where you are all the way to where you wanted to be. And I do that with live events. I have a series in Dallas with a fourth one that, as I said before, is at Disney World. Disney, because you learn about the magic in the heart of magic. And so there are those courses. And then, of course, you will often find me inside a company going, really? Shall we have a look at that just a little bit?
And you got to make the face, really?
Yeah, really? And could we put that down in a way that's dimensional? And this piece is what really rocks people's worlds. They have, if they come to live events, they have multiple aha moments and they level up very, very quickly.
Right.
So that's what I do. Exploding the human potential into the best form possible with a whole lot of magic.
I love it. And of course, you have your book, Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint, a powerful guide to transformation through disentangling multi-generational patterns. And it's not a just read book. There are things that you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, of course, if somebody wants to know what a meditation, at least a constellation is about, I have constellations meditations, which they will find on my website. And it takes you all the way through one of those processes. So you can actually work at a pattern that you're stuck at the moment.
I love it. I love it. Well, Judy, this really has been so much fun and so interesting. And as I said, we've never really talked about that, about this. You know, and so it's been so much fun to be learning from you. And I hope everyone else got as much out of this as I did. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
A couple. One is there's no such thing as a train wreck and you're not it. You're simply got to have a look at what that wreck is trying to show you. And the other one is people have told you this for a long time, but it's really the truth. You can have the life that you want. You can absolutely have the life that you want. It doesn't matter where you are right now. If you start to think one new thought, feel one new feeling, and take one new action in the direction of what it is that you want, and you keep doing that, you will get there.
I love it. So much fun. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having just the best conversation excuse me, with Judy Wilkins-Smith. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.